Hi, everyone. Welcome to Flock Talk. I'm Erin Morgan.
And I'm Tom Lewis.
And we work for the farmer members of the Ontario Sheep Farmers Organization.
This week we are discussing a new book with author and sheep producer Barbara McLean called Shepherd's Sight, a farming life book.
Thank you, Barbara, for joining us.
And hello, Barbara. Thank you for joining us, as Erin said. And before we jump into questions about your new book, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your farm?
Absolutely. I've been here for 50 years. We just celebrated 50 years on the farm. So we have a small flock of Border Leicesters, registered Border Leicester sheep, which we keep for meat and wool. They are a dual purpose sheep, but actually their carcasses aren't that great because they take a long time to reach carcass weight. However, I'm really interested in the wool. I'm a spinner and a weaver, and I use a lot of the wool myself, and we sell our wool to hand spinners and fiber artists. So we can sell our wool at an absolute premium, way more than anybody else is getting for their wool unless they're doing the same thing we are. And sometimes we will put a North Country Cheviot ram if we want some market lambs, and that makes an excellent cross, and they do reach market weight quickly. But the sheep they're wonderful mothers, they're beautiful, and they have this long, lustrous Border Leicester fleece, which is just beautiful to work with. They aren't common, so that's I think why we have such great customers, because they can't just find this fleece anywhere. And we also really look after our wool so that it is usable for the fleece, and we can do that because we can get a good result, a good price for it. Our farm, we do rotational grazing, and we feed outside in the winter. So the sheep are not confined, except during lambing. And my own background, I was an academic. I taught at the University of Guelph. So that comes into my background as well. And as well as the sheep, we have a small maple bush, which we do in the old-fashioned way with sap buckets and an iron kettle, and have dark, smoky maple syrup that we give away to friends mostly. So that's pretty much what we're doing here.
It sounds amazing and idyllic. So,
well, we were part of that kind of 60s post-crunchy granola back to the land movement, and we stayed.
That's wonderful. So we're excited for your book launch this month. And so what prompted you to write a book about your farm?
Well, it's the second book about my farm. I wrote another one some time ago called Lamb's Quarters, which is also the name of the farm. But Shepherd's Sight, I guess it's been milling around for a long time, and just thinking of so many changes in farming in the 50 years we've been here. Probably fewer for us because we still do things in a hands-on, old-fashioned way. But of course, we are constantly learning, and I wanted to address a lot of that, what we've learned, what the changes are, how things used to be, where we're going in the future. I have writing experience as an academic and a teacher of English, but I wanted to, for one thing, I wanted to address the aspect of aging on the farm, and the other thing of just giving readers a sense of the joys and the heartbreaks of dealing with animals and of living on the land, and of things going wrong and of things going right, I guess, both. And as far as the launch, there will be a launch event at the Durham Art Gallery on the 23rd of March at 2:00 in the afternoon. That's a Saturday, and that's an open event for people. So
that's fantastic. That's the same week, I think, as the Lamb Banquet in District 2. So it's good timing.
Yeah, great.
Can you tell us a little bit about the book? Is it a memoir? What did you write about?
Well, I think you could call it a memoir. Certainly it is about my life. It's a sort of biography of the farm in a way. The farm is a big character. The sheep are characters. And I wrote it as a shepherd's calendar. And there's a English literature background of shepherd's calendar poems back to Edmund Spenser and through John Clare. And that was my original title. But I've changed that because although it is a calendar, and the sheep, well, all of farming is a cyclical event, right? So we all follow the calendar. And for us, January is a fairly quiet month. The sheep are gestating. February, things are kicking up a bit. We might start flushing and on into the, not flushing, but increasing their feed for the lambs. They do most of their growth in the last 6 weeks. And then lambing is our big event of the year. Out to pasture in the summer, marketing and culling in the fall. And then back to breeding again and around the cycle. So following the seasons and following the months. So that's what I've done in the book. The chapters are all titled by month chapters and month headings. And that it's an ancient process. I mean, presumably we followed the sheep to what they were doing, centuries ago. And we have modified that in some operations. We don't. We do natural lambing. So we wait. We decide when to put the ram in, obviously, but we wait until they are in a natural estrus and lamb in the spring. So I guess that's what I wrote about. I guess I wrote about the farm in the present through 1 year of writing, but also looking back to what has happened in the 50 years we've been here, and also looking forward into what's going to happen next.
That's amazing. I'm really looking forward to reading it. I think I've said that, but I'll say it again. Are the characters in your book your real life family and friends? Do you include your neighbors and the people around you in the stories? And what do they think about being in the book?
Well, that remains to be seen because the book isn't out yet. So I don't really know. I haven't had much feedback from, haven't really spoken about it too much with people. But yes, they are real characters, and they are, I've used real names. In Lamb's Quarters book, I did change the names. I changed the names of the village and where I live, and also of the people. And interestingly enough, one of my neighbors, who was quite central, his family in the book, was a little bit annoyed about why I didn't use his real name. But I had a sense that of protecting people's anonymity, I think, and also of my own. Wasn't quite sure, how that would change things if people knew exactly where I was or whatever. But yes, they are real characters now in Shepherd's Sight with real names. But unfortunately, a lot of the people I talk about, a lot of my mentors and my neighbors are no longer with us. Oh. So that is a big part of the book too, is people who taught me how to do this. I arrived here without knowing the difference between hay and straw. And I was in it in thick, but I had excellent neighbors. I did a lot of work for them and learned that way, which was great. But they're gone. So there is a kind of elegiac note to how important those people were for me. And I suppose now, I do a bit of mentoring myself with new farmers so that I can pass on some of the experience that I've had.
Nice. You have an underlying theme of sustainability and the importance of land stewardship. What do you hope people will take away from your book when it comes to farming and the future of the planet?
Well, I think it's really important for me to I kind of address the non-farmer reader, because I think I was listening to your podcast of your previous one about the woman who's working with non-farmers about their food and about farming practices. And I think there's a lot of misconception about what goes on in farming. And I think it's important for people to realize how farming has changed because of worries about climate and worries about sustainability. I mean, people aren't plowing as much. We're doing no-till. We're using GPS and computers to map out fields so that you can put the fertilizer and pesticides just exactly where you need them. And so a whole lot less is being used of both of those things. There's also less runoff, so it's more protection for the water. I think farmers are more and more aware that we are just stewards of the land. I mean, it isn't ours. It's been there, and we have to keep it. We have to look after it so that it continues to be there in the future. 7 generations. That's what we have to think about. So I think it's important for non-farmers to know that, and for farmer readers, just to be reminded of those things, and also to know that that's being acknowledged, that we are stewards and that we are concerned about where things are going, and how we might work to protect the land and protect the environment, and try to work for less climate change, because it is a crisis, an emergency.
Yeah, it's so important. I'm glad that that's a big theme of your book. So for anyone listening wondering about the experience of writing a book, how long did it take to write? How did you approach the writing process?
Well, I think the first draft took me about a year, and I approached it by really following the year through. And I think, I was writing about January and January. I was writing about March and March. Well, it was really immediate for me. I didn't have, other than the structure of the calendar year, which was really important to me. And when I kind of came to that, I wanted to write about the farm. I wanted to write about aging. I wanted to write about a whole different issues around farming, but that gave me the structure to do it within a year. And once I had that, that was easy. Then I was able to just sort of sit down, think about. We moved here in January. What was it like then? Well, it was storming, I can tell you. And we didn't have heat. We didn't have hot water. We didn't, the farm was a brick tent, and the barn wasn't much better. So we had a lot to do right away. So it was fun going back and thinking about that. And then also, what's happening just right now in the past January, or the January where I was writing the book. It's called Shepherd's Sight. And I think that was part of the writing process, was a sense of watchfulness. Certainly on my morning walks, on my trips to the barn, all that kind of stuff, paying attention to what I was seeing. And that was really interesting to me for the writing, because I found that because I was writing about it, it heightened my sense, all my senses, but particularly the visual and the idea of, seeing a beautiful piece of lichen on a rock that you just walk by normally, looking at it really carefully. The outline of a leaf in that thin ice on a puddle, and then taking that image and trying to distill it into language. That was really important for me in the book. And also the watchfulness around the flock. I continue to hear people say there's no such thing as a sick sheep. It's a live sheep or it's a dead sheep. There's nothing in between. And I would dispute that. I have a small flock. I have the time. If I pay careful attention to them, I could see if they're not doing well. I can detect it, the tiniest bit of a limp. I can watch their ears. Their ears are so expressive. And if they're slightly downturned, there's something wrong. Is it the same sheep who's always in behind coming in from the pasture? That kind of thing. Just careful watching. So I think Shepherd's Sight was a big part of writing, the process of thinking about that. So that's pretty much how I approach it. The writing is not difficult for me. It's a wonderful time while I'm writing. I think it's probably really boring for anybody else who's around me when I get really excited about something I'm working on. But for me, it's great. It's really, it's not a struggle. I'm lucky.
I really find the process interesting and wonder, do you carry a notebook with you to sort of jot down things as you see them, or do you take pictures, or how do you remember these things?
Well, I don't know. I think they just stick in my head. I do take pictures. I have this, a number of years ago, I was having trouble getting enough exercise, and I complained to my son-in-law about this, who's very athletic. And he said, well, if you went on a walk every day and took a picture of the same place and texted it to somebody, that would make sure that you did it. So I think we're coming up to 6 years now. I have texted him a picture every morning, and bless him, he doesn't seem to mind. This year I decided, I've picked a different place every year. This year I decided I'm going to do a different place every year, which means I can kind of cheat sometimes. But I suppose that's part of it, because I do have those pictures. But I think while I'm writing, I absolutely I don't write things down. I don't take a notebook, and I don't take pictures of specific things to write about. But I think I have them in my head, and that walk is first thing in the morning, and then there are the chores, and then I would sit down and write. So it's fresh. And then my mind would just take me back to memories of things.
So for anyone,
that's how.
So for anyone wanting to purchase your book, where do they go? How do they find it?
Well, first thing I would say is go to the publisher, acw.com, and you can pre-order it there. Also, the other usuals, Amazon, Indigo. It's also available in people in the UK or the US, the English-speaking world. So it does seem to be showing up on their websites. Certainly bookstores, independent bookstores, I always like to promote. You guys are in Guelph. I think the bookshelf would be an ideal place. I'm sure if anyone went there and asked them to pre-order it, they would, or any other bookstore. It should be widely available once it comes out on March the 19th. But as I say, you can pre-order.
Wonderful. So, Barbara, what is next for you? Another book or an exciting new project on the farm?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I've just told you I've been here for 50 years. So I'm kind of, aging out of this business. And every year we say, well, we're keeping no more lambs. This is it. We're just going to keep the flock we have, and they'll go by attrition. And every year I keep more lambs. And this year I kept a beautiful black lamb. We do have some black border Leicesters that we can't register them in Canada, but they come from registered American stock, which you can register there. And they're a real premium for my spinners, the black border Leicester. And they come, they have various shades of gray as they come along. Anyway, just as I'd almost shipped all my lambs, a coyote got my black lamb. Aww. So I had sold a bunch of lambs for breeding, and I had sold the rest of my ewe lambs. And the last lot I had to go was the smallest of the rams and one little ewe lamb left. And last one I'd ever be likely to keep, but somehow, because I lost the black one, I kept her. So not the best farming practice, but I guess what I'm telling you is my plan not to keep any lambs hasn't really worked out. And my guess is if I have some nice black lambs this spring, female lambs, I'll probably keep them. As far as projects on the farm, I always have a big garden, so that's just what I always do. I think there will be some small writing projects. I noticed from my last book, other things would happen. I was asked to write some chapters in a couple of books and some essays, things like that. And I do have a vague project in mind, but not in a hurry. My partner, Thomas Wilson, is a dry stone waller. And I noticed there's quite a big pile of stones over there in the barnyard. So I think there's a new wall coming in for him, which will involve me moving a lot of garden, I think. But our big project at the moment, maybe stupidly, we signed up with the Lions Club Foundation, and we are now fostering a 10-week-old puppy that we will, a black lab that we will have for a year. And we are to teach her manners and to socialize her for a year. And then she will go back to what they call dog university, and will be trained to be a service dog to help someone else. So that is actually kind of a big project right now, including keeping us up a bit at night. So other than that, I don't have anything large looming.
That sounds like lots.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Barbara, for joining us and telling us about your new book. I know we're both interested and looking forward to reading it, and I know many of our producers and listeners will probably be the same.
Well, this has been great. It's been really fun to talk to you both. And nice to meet you, Tom. I've met Erin before, but I hadn't met you, so that's great. Thank you so much.
And thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Join us next Wednesday for a research-themed interview with Dr. Angela Canovas, professor and OAC research chair in phenomics and systems biology, distinguished professor of excellence in research, beef cattle and small ruminants genetics with the University of Guelph.
All right, the Eastern Sheep Expo is the premier one-day annual event targeting sheep producers in Eastern Ontario and Western Quebec. Held annually in South Mountain, Ontario at the Mountain Township Agricultural Hall. This year's presenter include Ontario Sheep Farmers Chairperson Art Alblas, from the Animal Health Lab in Kemptville, Dr. Emily Radstep, Corlina Patterson of the Canadian Sheep Federation, and Lori Moss with No Sheep Sherlock. It's going to be a local 4-H food booth on site. We're also going to have prizes, silent auctions. We're also going to have a trade show available for everybody to come and enjoy. So that's Saturday, April 13th, 2024 at the Mountain Township Agricultural Hall in beautiful South Mountain, Ontario. The address is 2967 Loft Road, South Mountain, Ontario. Admission is $10 at the door. Hope to see everybody there.
Tom, what's new? What have you been working on?
Ontario Sheep Farmers puts together resources for new producers when they register with Ontario Sheep. Regulations made under the Ontario Farm Products Marketing Act require that all persons engaged in producing or marketing sheep in Ontario register with Ontario Sheep Farmers. A business contact registry entry is required for each producer of sheep in Ontario. To confirm your contact information, either complete the online form by visiting ontariosheep.org and look under the About Us tab. Here you can download the complete PDF form and return it to the office. If you have registered with OSF previously, you may want to also contact our office to make sure that your information is up to date and correct for a number of reasons. Please contact the Ontario Sheep Farmers Office to ensure that the most up-to-date information is on file and that we have your information if needed. If you enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe through your podcast app to receive alerts to our future episodes, and please share with your family and friends.
For more Ontario Sheep Farmers content, follow us on social media at Ontario Sheep Farmers on Instagram and Facebook, and at Ontario Sheep on X, formerly Twitter, and visit our website at ontariosheep.org.